What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of Don't Call This Podcast. I'm outside of my usual recording space this time. I'm downstairs now, but excuse me. Wow, it's going to be an interesting night. This is the first presidential debate of 2020. Our panel will be here in the building. We'll be here with you the whole way. Joining me, as always, is Ms. Courtney Campbell. How you doing, Courtney?
I'm already miserable in advance.
Joining us shortly will be Ron. He should be here very soon. I don't know why I got to keep clearing my throat.
And then joining us a little more.
Yes, I do need to drink a little bit more. There's Ron, and then joining us in a little bit will be Matt Rogers of Politidope. I'm letting him know that we are on now. We will be streaming CNN's broadcast of the events tonight. I'll go ahead and put it over here. It's not going to be, I'm not going to have the audio on right now as we have to look at Rick Santorum's face.
I'm not trying to get that drunk.
Yeah, so we'll take that away for a little bit, but yeah, we'll be watching that version of it. So what I would like to do before we get started is kind of give our own previews of how we think tonight is going to go. Of course, Courtney is drinking, but I do want to first and foremost, let me just check in on y'all. How are y'all doing? What's going on?
Just one day at a time, man. One day at a time.
One debate at a time.
I'm just wanting to say that since we're willing to be miserable for y'all and watch this whole thing with y'all and stream our reactions, we care about the content we create.
Yes.
You can't say we don't care because look what we're doing.
We're doing this for you, the people.
For you,
we're doing
the
this
people,
for you.
Despite our mental health needs.
Yeah. So my kids are away tonight just because I'm just like, they went with grandma. It's that kind of night. It's going to be very, very interesting to say the least. I'm not looking forward to the lies that Trump is going to get away with because Chris Wallace doesn't want to fact check anybody on anything. Just because he said his job is to not be in the way. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, you can catch us if you aren't, if you're not sure what platforms to spread this around to. If you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube or Twitter/Periscope, we welcome you. And you're welcome to choose any of those platforms and send us your comments, your questions. Send it to the suggestion box. We'll put them on the screen like we did with AJ here. If you have any, if you have, yes, it's the Cacophony in Cleveland. If you have your own personal hot takes or whatever you want to contribute to the show, you are welcome to too. This is meant to be fully interactive. So again, the way this will function is we'll watch the debate. We may throw a few snide comments here or there, but when they go to commercial, we will have our conversations. I'll be taking notes. I'm trying to make note of the actual content that happens here and not just the Trump's ramblings. But let me go ahead and pull up. Ron, do you want to talk about the cups that we have coming through very soon for some soon to be giveaways while I pull up these debate questions?
Oh, yes, I do. Just imagine I have a beautiful cup here. But no, seriously, we have stadium cups. They're mood-changing cups. So if you subscribe to us on our various channels that Ryan mentioned, also on our recap shows, what we'll do is if you subscribe and come participate with us, we'll hold a few drawings and possibly you can get a cup. So be on the lookout for those. They're pretty cool. You need a cup for football season. You aren't going anywhere, so you might as well just drink at home. Yeah,
so, just embrace the ambiance.
You can never have too many cups ever.
Can never have too many cups. Thing. I love free cups. Like I'm the person who will go through like apartment fairs at my very big age and get cups just because I like free cups. So you want this cup. So be on the lookout for those. They're coming your way.
Courtney, what you drinking on?
Right now, I have a cream soda and just some Crown Royal.
All right, that's fair.
I'm keeping it very basic because I'm consuming quite a bit. I'm thinking I might do margarita mix next. Who knows? And then after that, I have some wine.
Come into the frame.
I have cups ready to go. So I have my step stool by where we keep the liquor because I'm like 3 feet tall. So, because I live with a tall person and everything is high up. So if you see me disappear, I have it angled so where no one can see me do the step stool because that's embarrassing. So.
So I've got our segments here before we get started. It's going to be 6 15-minute sections that will take place tonight. The first section is on the records of President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Second one is on the Supreme Court. Third will be COVID-19. Fourth, the economy. 5, race and violence in our cities.
Oh, Lord.
I'm going to be taking shots during that one.
6, the integrity of the election. So it's going to start bumpy and it's going to end bumpy, baby. Okay.
We're going to be drunk is what we're trying to say.
All right. We got 20 minutes before we get things rolling here. Matt should be rolling in here sometime soon. Ron, if you're Biden's campaign team, what are you looking for tonight?
I think to a certain degree, he has to maintain a balance between, rolling up his sleeves and landing punches, but at the same time deflecting, just basically resisting the urge to be pulled into the muck, into the mud, and allowing this debate to lose whatever, like I was going to say like gravitas, but I can't even say that. I don't even know, but basically he must, because there are jabs that he could, that he could toss and he could land, but at the same time, like we don't need to see like basically insults hurled around. So just resist that, but still deliver your points, because he has points on each one of those topics that he can deliver. So I hope he does that.
Courtney, we know that Trump has been, or I think my favorite part of this is that Trump has been attacking Biden's cognitive ability over the last few months, which is obviously setting him up for a strong performance, because all he has to do is look competent, right?
Yeah. Here's my thing too that I've really been thinking about, and one thing that they got Hillary Clinton on, and it's something there's nothing inherently wrong with, but he has to kind of tone down his diction a little bit, as I'm not, because that's one of the things, like, the liberal elite, they were using words with more than one syllable. So I think that's one thing they need to be careful about. I think Joe Biden's a lot better about that than I think with Hillary Clinton there was some sexism toward that too. Yeah. But the thing is, it's like you kind of have to be careful. From watching 2016 debates, because that was like one of the biggest things. Like, she doesn't talk like that, like us, like blah blah blah. She thinks she's better than everyone because she used a word with 3 syllables. So it's funny, but I think that's something that you have to be careful. You have to be careful about, So
well, you do have to be careful. You do want to make sure that you don't make people feel stupid, and that's not to say that
you're not stupid if you don't know those
things. You're not
things.
stupid if you don't know the words.
If you get mad at someone for using that word, then you are.
A lot of people get insecure in their intelligence, and so yeah, I mean that is part of it. Whether that's fair or not, that's part of the game, unfortunately. And so yeah, I mean I do think diction does matter, as you said, because we do. So let me kind of take it a step further here. One thing that I feel like, and I've been watching a lot of Biden's speeches or press conferences that he's done in front of invisible audiences, where he's really channeled a lot of the anger that people feel, right? If there's one thing that we know, and we're going to talk about the Quinnipiac poll in a second here before we get rolling, but if there's one thing that we know that Trump struggles with or is struggling with, it's COVID, right? We know that people don't trust him when it comes to the way he's handling COVID. We know that people don't trust him in what he has to say about the whole pandemic. And so if Biden can channel that anger in terms of the 200,000 people that have died, the people that have lost their jobs, their livelihoods, their ability to work or function, their ability to actually just exist outside of their home, I think if he can channel that anger, especially when it comes to that point, he can really drive it home. Because like I said, the bar is in hell, basically. It's inside the earth because Trump and his team have unwisely basically spent the entire race saying that he's not cognitive. He is on the brink of collapse. So if Biden at least looks like he can not just string sentences together, but show emotion and show empathy, then I think he's already steps ahead.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that because for various reasons, the main is that he had to overcome a speech impediment. Biden isn't the best speaker, but to me, that's when the areas of brilliance come in because we see these orators who come into these things and they're prepared, but sometimes like Biden's best speeches are when he just allows the emotion to come through. And I think people can really relate to that. So I think we'll get a lot of that tonight, and I think that's where he can really land his best punches.
Courtney, did you have anything to add there?
No, I agree. I think it's using the emotion in the right way, channeling the emotion of the American people, but also not feeding into the insults back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And no Pokemon go to the polls, Joe.
Please, no Pokemon go. No,
never again.
Don't. Please don't.
No.
I don't. Nothing of that sort.
No.
Nothing of how do you do, children, kids, kiddos.
Pokemon go to the poll. God,
that was the
I'm
worst.
I'm still hurt about that. All right, let's talk about this Quinnipiac poll that came out because I want to get ahead of this instead of our Thursday show, since our Thursday show is likely going to contain all of our complaints about tonight's debate. This show's presidential contest and Senate contest are tight in Georgia, which is really going to make things interesting here. Trump has held the lead for a while, but now Joe Biden is up 3 points according to the latest Quinnipiac poll in Georgia. 51% to 47% have approved of the job that Trump has done as president. At the same time, 53% are disappointed of the handling of his handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Within that, where it really gets interesting is the jungle primary, containing 19,000 people, including Kelly Loeffler, Doug Collins, Raphael Warnock, and Joe Lieberman's kid, where Raphael Warnock is polling at 31%. In first place above Loeffler and Collins. So if things come to the fruition, if the votes come out the way that the polls currently are, it will be a runoff between Warnock and Loeffler, where in the other Senate race right now between Jon Ossoff and David Perdue, Perdue is in a 1-point margin, but Ossoff leads self-identified independents by 10 points. So it's getting crazy here. We've already talked about the Senate race before, and we're not going to dive into who's going to win what. But in all of the projections here, the path to the majority for Democrats didn't necessarily include Georgia. It'd be nice to have it, but North Carolina, it's included Montana. I mean, not Montana, North Carolina, Maine, Colorado, Arizona. Those are kind of the four that they're banking on. If they can get both these Georgia Senate seats, this might really mean something down the line. Ron, hearing those numbers, and Courtney, since you live here now too, how does that make you feel kind of now that we're starting to see, of course, the momentum build for Warnock here in Georgia and Biden actually take a lead?
Certainly promising. Anytime that a Democratic candidate is polling positively, and once again, I typically only acknowledge like a margin error of like 5 points. If I'm like 5 points, okay, that's clear, but still 3 in Georgia is pretty significant. And I think the race in Georgia to keep eyes on, and Ryan, I'm going to defer to you on the Warnock and Lieberman thing, because I know that's that's been the bee in your bonnet for quite some time. But John
I've been at Matt Lieberman's neck for about 2 weeks. I need him to drop out.
But Jon Ossoff, I think he can, I think he could bring that home. So yeah, things are getting interesting in Georgia. Even just one of those seats will be crazy. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, if I guess if Biden does win a Georgia or even like a Texas, then hell really might freeze over. Like it really might. But we'll see.
Can I just say something about Ossoff's ads? Because again, I had like ABC on and just on YouTube. I just have been very masterful, and what I wish I'd seen a lot more political ads. One, it was a David Perdue ad, kind of attacking his credibility in a lot of things. And immediately following, it was an Ossoff ad. It's like, you may have heard this in this ad. Here are the facts, and here's where you can find this. Immediate, I was like, that is so masterful.
That's how you do it.
I'm like, they were in that. I think I had only seen that David Perdue ad very recently. I'm like, their team is on it. I'm like, that's how you do it. You, instead of counterattacking, it's like, well, actually, that's false, and this is what you can do in your own time to verify it for yourself. And I was like, and he's young, and I think and because he's young, I think he's very in tune with what the voters want and what voters need and what they're looking at, and that's one thing out of many reasons I think that he may get it, and I'm hoping so. So
yeah, no, I
John
think
Ossoff looks like he could be Spider-Man. I just want that.
he does look like.
No, I do want to put it out there. So if anybody in the Ossoff team happens to be watching or somebody's connected to it, we have reached out. I just reached out today. Hopefully we hear back from you. Hopefully we can get some leverage here in the next few days to get you on our side here. If you haven't been tuning into Don't Call Us a Podcast, our election 2020 mini-series has been going strong. We started this in May, Ron?
Yeah, I think it was.
I started this in May.
It feels like we've been doing this forever, but we've only been doing it for 4 months, and it's been going strong. So shout out to Ron for helping me launch the idea. Shout out to Courtney for jumping on board with us. Shout out to Brandon, who isn't here with us tonight, but will be back with us on Thursday for all the insight that he brings to the table. And then also shout out to the guests that we've had. So if you haven't had the chance already, as I've always said, make sure you check out your local elections. If you haven't done so, look and see who's running for your state Senate seat in your district, your House of Representatives, see who's running for city council, who's running for everything, including the tax collector and the dog catcher, right? All of those things, as important as the presidential election is, and I cannot stress the importance of it enough, the stuff at that local level directly impacts you in a more immediate manner. So if you haven't done so, make sure you do that. And yeah, so shout out to Jonathan. Yes, we are going to stream the actual debate, so we will have it right here.
It out. Pokemon was our little test run this morning, so who would have thought?
So shout out to everybody who tuned in this morning with our live stream of the Pokemon Direct, which shows you just how versatile this channel is, right? We're doing a little bit of everything.
And we're going to be picking up more random things like gaming, and especially when, things get after election, we're going to be doing lots of things. So you should stay tuned in.
Absolutely. So let's see, kidswearcrowns.com. As you can see at the bottom of your screen, please send your comments and your questions. We'd be more than happy to post them under here, as we are currently doing, as you see. Any thoughts from the audience? I know we've got a couple people who've been coming in and out. We appreciate y'all. What are y'all looking forward to seeing tonight? What's one thing that you think will work in Biden's favor? Look, I do hate that we've always kind of been at the point. We've been at the point lately where the debates and kind of the whole election is sort of like a sports debate show, I think we appreciate that. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I think it's important that we look at this in one of two ways, right? We know that Biden has to come out of this looking good to the audience and the media, right? Because the answers have to land in a way that basically when they replay the clips, they replay all the cuts, the people who didn't watch it, who did miss it, can see those things that really, really land. Joe Biden's team basically grabbed a handle on Twitter called Truth, in an effort to basically fact check Trump in real time. That does super great for the social media Twitter crowd, but it doesn't really do what Chris Wallace and them should be doing in terms of actually fact checking him in real time, so that people who are watching, who, believe it or not, don't realize the things that he's saying are lies, could actually be hip to that. So that's my biggest fear. Courtney, do you feel the same way about that?
I think a lot of people have to realize that most people are not on Twitter. I think that's one of the biggest things. We can fact check and all these things on Twitter, but it's not really happening anywhere else. Really, people are watching live, and that's it. And it's great that we can fact check. We have that as well. We need people like Chris Wallace to do better. It's not even being biased. You know what? Truth has no bias, or at least it shouldn't. So it is frustrating because that's the best way to get the American people to know. But best thing to do is talk to your relatives that make you uncomfortable. Talk to about it.
Yeah, please do. Mm-hmm. Please do. I'm going to show off our cups real quick while we have downtime. Let me pull this up from our group me, and I can share it on the screen. Hopefully I don't blow anything up in the process. But I want y'all to see, and I got to be really careful so I don't show y'all the surprises we have coming up.
Actually, pull it up from the Twitter because we posted a picture earlier.
Oh, we did put it on Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
I was
Good.
about to
'Cause
say
I didn't want to blow that surprise. It's in our
because
gallery.
I mean, I'll go ahead and tease it soon, but we may have a really, really, really special guest next week.
Special.
Really special guest.
It's like written in pencil now, but it's like the thick pencils back in the day that you can't erase. Like it's almost pen, not quite pen, but still pencil.
And we are extremely excited. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to announce it. Like I'm like
we're like
I am a giddy school child waiting to announce this. Okay, let me share this tab here so y'all can see it. Let me take
as soon as we're able to announce it.
Oh, it'll be announced.
Y'all will know why we've been sitting on this for a while.
Yeah, we've been working on this one for a minute. This is the whale we've been hunting, basically.
So here is our new cocktail cup. If you haven't seen it already, it changes colors. You see that? Isn't that cool?
With temperature.
So as you can see, as Caitlin Daughtry said here, color changing. We will have giveaways for this very, very soon. So make sure you stay tuned. Follow us on the Twitter at KWC blog. That's the best way to stay in touch about this contest. I think at this point we can go ahead and turn it to CNN. It does indeed ship to Canada, Jonathan. So
oh yeah, we're global, so yeah, we can ship some to Canada.
Yeah, we can ship some to Canada. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna turn it over to CNN at this point in time, and I hope that's okay. We'll figure it out soon. And away we go.
And this will be an hour and a half of Joe Biden just getting beat up because I think.
All right, never mind. We're gonna hold off on that because nobody wants to hear what Rick Santorum has to say.
Chug this.
God, that's terrible timing.
Yeah. I do not want to listen to Rick Black Cream talk about this right now.
Rick Santorum. Who's taking Rick Santorum seriously?
Why do so many Republicans have like faces that are just like not pleasant? And like not even saying ugly. It's just like why? Like their faces just look a certain way.
It's like your face is sinking inward. Like,
yes, thank you.
It's almost like ours face.
Yeah. Charlie Kirk has the same face, but like to the extreme.
Right.
Like your face, their face. Like you know how when you're a child, you have to grow your face. You know, you kind of have to grow into your face. He never had to. I'm sure at some point it was a normal sized face, but as he grew. The head it's like when you're like playing like on a Skyrim or something, like you build your own character and you make the face as small as possible.
That's all.
That's what all tonight's gonna be for me.
Okay. Well, hopefully he should be good. I really can't believe Rick Santorum came third place in the Republican primary.
I can't.
Or was he second? It was him. It came down to him, Mittens, and Newt. I remember that because I worked for that talk station.
That was what an awful person.
Do you recognize how much of a terrible primary that is when the most tolerable people in the primary were Mitt Romney and Herman Cain?
Yeah.
And remember, like even Jeb Bush, who was a total weirdo. It's like
Jeb. Did Jeb run in 2012?
No, it was in 2016. But
2016 because Jeb had the double exclamation logo.
Mm-hmm.
Such a terrible logo.
2012 was also really bad. Oh,
it was so bad. And the funny thing is they picked the best possible nominee to have a chance at winning, and he still got blown out.
Yeah,
that's the crazy part about it. All right, every time I get ready to throw to it, it's Rick Santorum. I don't want Rick Santorum.
I don't even want his face.
If I felt like going back upstairs to change the channel that it's on, I would, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to wait for him to stop talking to get that punchable face out of here.
It's Rick Santorum. He's not.
You get out of here, Rick Santorum.
I don't even want to see Van Jones right now.
Like, do you see how I don't want to see Van Jones, but do you see how everybody's reactions to Rick Santorum? Like, I feel like that
ABC had Don Jr. on there, so this is better.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was like, really.
Why would you invite them?
Yeah, they literally. I turned on ABC. And they literally had Don Jr. as a correspondent. And I'm like, imagine if they had like one of the Obama girls as people would be like, that's not the bias. Yeah. And talking about like one of the worst faces. All of the sons.
All of them. I do agree with Nick that I want that to happen once. It's not gonna happen. I do enjoy the tweet where somebody said Joe Biden should show up in a TurboTax shirt.
No,
Which would be amazing.
I think Joe Biden is able to do that in his tone, though, and I hope we can get it in the tone at least. But yeah.
Well, so
I need a
over
well
under. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was about to say over under 20 minutes in reference to Joe Biden challenging Trump to a push-up contest.
I would think Trump would be the one to challenge him because Trump is asserting that he's on drugs, right? Like he's asserting that he's being shot up before every.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like.
Oh, okay.
Like Trump's gonna throw that claim out, and Biden's gonna be like, "Bet, let's do it." And he's gonna rip off his shirt and say, "Okay, let's get into it."
My over under is how many come-ons? How many? I mean, come-ons are
If
we
this
going
was the Birmingham City Council, there would be a guaranteed throwdown.
Oh yeah, like people don't remember that things got crazy. Yeah,
I just remember people in Chicago. It's like, oh, our politics here. I'm like, honey, honey.
Do y'all throw hands in your city hall?
Does that happen? Does your governor say "bless our hearts" and other parts with his mistress?
he wants to kiss the good ear.
Don't get near me. That was embarrassing because I was living in Chicago when when the election between Doug Jones and Roy Moore was happening. People were like, "So is that with Roy Moore?" I'm like, "Oh no, yeah, we've known he's horrible for years. Don't try to tell me my own trauma with dealing with Roy Moore, having to live with one of his constituents for so long."
Oh man, this isn't new.
It's like, oh, you don't even know about the 10 Commandments, so don't.
Yeah. I just wish he would stop talking. Literally every time we get to a point where I want to throw.
Why are we having these people as correspondents? And people are like, oh, CNN is but where? They have Rick Santorum.
Okay. He's still going. Let's see what he's saying.
I don't want to say
That's not.
If you look at the ones with Clinton, Donald Trump is almost sort of doing a jazz performance. He's like riffing on what's happening.
Holding the mic. Right.
He's actually enjoying it.
It's annoying.
Whereas the other person is clearly not enjoying the experience. And I wonder if
it's but the point is, it's debilitating. And that's the point I keep making. It's an overtime, an hour and a half.
I just want to say one thing that we haven't talked about is that the families are both there. And these are two men who love their families. They are very, very committed to family stuff. And so I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you. Listen, Trump is proud to be a Trump. Biden is proud to be a Biden. When the family issues hit, and I think they will hit, I think there will be questions raised about Hunter. I think we're going to see how does he handle that. And also, some of this family stuff is now fair game because of this tax stuff. So you might be in a situation now where you have two dads proud of their families, proud of themselves.
Oh no!
Kind of a family feud, which is now a part of national life.
I think that we may be we're talking about Biden getting hit and then pivoting, but I think Biden's going to hit back a little bit too. I do.
I can't say I'm sorry.
This is okay. We got what? How much time?
Where's the bias in CNN? Where is the liberal bias? I'm looking for it. I'm looking.
Courtney, turn your mic down a little bit. You peeking.
I'm sorry. It upsets me.
CNN will be like allegedly bears eat human faces. We're going to bring on the bear to talk about this. It's the true bear.
I mean, there's things to critique about Biden, absolutely. But why are you going to only bring up Hunter Biden, but not the entire Trump enterprises? It's a whole bias with the whole family.
I was going to say the entire crime family.
Yeah, and like the family is like doing like presidential bidding. It's just like SDNY is just waiting. I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
I don't care about Melania. I don't care that she's there. I don't care. Do you?
I don't care. Do you?
It's just like football.
When I think of Melania, I think of that tweet that she put of that dolphin. It's like, what is she thinking?
Which tweet about a dolphin? I missed that one.
She tweeted about a dolphin like way before presidential times, and she's like, what is she thinking? Mm-hmm. Oh, and the one time that she posted a whole thirst trap. Oops. She posted a whole
Oh,
thirst
Courtney.
trap.
Courtney.
I didn't do it. No, I'm serious. I'm fine.
Okay.
I stepped on the cord.
Too much to drink.
No, not yet. But no,
Okay.
but she posted a whole thirst trap like in 2011, and it was one of the worst things I'd ever seen.
Oh,
And she's like, it was like a picture of her in a bathing suit, and she just like mentioned Trump.
wow. That sounds so sad.
This is the woman that you're sympathizing with.
Yeah, all of them can go. Every single one of them. I'm not really here to play the whole.
We don't. And here's the
maybe
thing.
maybe they're not as bad, and maybe they're just trying to protect.
No, what gets me is
their
people standing Ivanka, his daughter, when her husband's like one of the worst people, and I'm sure she is too because she supports her father.
I love the comment section going on right now. This is very entertaining.
Please comment, guys. Like, be
I'm
miserable
appreciative.
with this.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, AJ. He popped in here a little bit earlier. All right, I think we're getting ready to get started. Maybe
I'm hoping.
I'm gonna unmute.
Rick, since Mom's gone, we're safe.
Right. And it's also
sycophantic reporter.
It's also because there are some things that this president doesn't want to talk about, as Caitlin Collins reported tonight. He doesn't like to talk about his money. Will he be prepared to talk about things that are getting under his skin in that way? And did he do enough preparation for those things? I do think, though, to concede to the president in some ways, he does take tough questions from the media all the time. He doesn't always answer
From the White House press corps.
From the White House press
Absolutely.
corps.
I mean, in interviews, in long
not
interviews.
Not in interviews,
though.
but from the White House press corps. I do think that matters.
No, it does matter, and that is something that he does that Obama did not. Yeah. But the point is, he's in a reward system where the most MAGA-friendly stuff gets applauded. Wolf?
The moment that this campaign has been building to for months, President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden taking the stage, going head-to-head in their first presidential debate at this crucial time in America's history. The pandemic, the economy, race in America, the Supreme Court. They will be asked about the very difficult issues Americans are facing right now, the first of 3 presidential debates about to begin.
You gonna speak?
Good evening from the Health Education Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm ready.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election. So they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held, pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to
But-
socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
Biden.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, we're saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your
That
party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My-
medicine,
Me,
socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't be
the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily
Mr.
infected.
President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as a
shut him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it in the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And
just
you
be
don't
quiet
know
for a
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask,
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer
Go
your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big- this
you'll
is
be
big
happy,
stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will. If I
sorry.
can ask you the question, it will
Not what
end.
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
Well,
we call it.
well,
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going
didn't
to listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here.
by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you picked
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy.
Will you shut the fuck up?
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let
Now
him-
you're disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare.
have any
President.
do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what.
Can y'all mute his mic or
For
something?
Any help for people needing health care.
Who is
Because because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the
Not
individual
true.
mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people
we
say.
do want to
No,
get
no,
rid of it.
it's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to
cheaper
give
and
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have
against-
one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why would
because
you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right,
Gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We
Now
have
he's
ended.
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
Oh,
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There
was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made a
by the way.
point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And
You would have been
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, "Wear a mask. We can save half those numbers. Just a mask." And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen,
and
let me move on to questions about the future because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available. not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
this is
delivering
the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That was
and you
him.
know that.
I
That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And
Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can't trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not, they're the people. And by the way,
I spoke to the
and
scientists that are in charge.
by the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID. He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So, Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and
We're
it's
going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
See,
Nancy
the-
Pelosi. And
And
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the
Okay.
Senate. And he sits in his golf course. And well, I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country,
Oh,
and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
ju-
a
he
great thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election
All right,
on
I
November
want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
But those states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious.
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you,
opposite.
we got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars, and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to
Herman Cain.
and we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just
wrong
yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir.
Well,
we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
all right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know,
gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which
is. Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750. Millions
of dollars. And you'll get to see it. You'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
Let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted. Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Excuse
me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true. Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally, Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5
President,
million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh,
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
it's a fact.
Well,
There's,
you have raised an issue. Let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
The only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly
By
discredited.
who?
And you
The
can-
media.
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
under-
Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mister. I'm listening to
Even the
you.
people under
He got $3.5
he
million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
No,
testified.
no, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some,
good
because
job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
said-
You
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe,
No. I'm
No.
Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did he
not true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down
Go
and
ahead.
helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a.
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect $3.5
people.
million
He doesn't. That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Take
that's
it
the
out
end of
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He stood up.
No,
He stood up
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion if you
That
get rid of
is
the
if you're-
troops.
you know what, you're-
absolutely not
Stop.
You're on
true.
tape
You're-
doing it.
you're gonna
You're on
have-
tape.
True.
Gentlemen,
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but
on
it seems
tape.
to be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
Now,
sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
he did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate, never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest? No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place. And you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place. It's a racist place. And they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this. than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes, I'm
ahead.
in favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're now.
is president of the
Mr. President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the book.
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Think
all right.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called for the people, the leader, excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Really? Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And for 3 days,
President Trump
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the here's the point. The point is that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
You have repeatedly. You've been talking back and forth.
Statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
If you want to switch seats,
we could very quickly.
We could do that, but
send in the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
but they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
malicious. That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI. His FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well, then
gonna,
you know what?
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
When
moving.
a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings. And if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it. And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
You may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot. And the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter?
hell.
Are you talking about
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right,
dollars?
he wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He
millions
was
of
given
dollars. That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
I know, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think it's
true.
a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. We're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting.
You believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls.
This motherfucker doesn't think the climate exists outside of
They
trees.
manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No,
ignored
but you would take a lot of
your
cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out. Where they want to take out the cows too, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion. Look, that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going.
The case. All right, let me because I actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs. And these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
I want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about,
he made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay,
that is
what
not
he
true.
did. Is
You're
he
done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape. He said
Mr.
stupid bastards. He said it.
Stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
play
to
it.
the military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all is ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental
Green New
changes
Deal,
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans
Oh, thank God it's almost over.
mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are we to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our first lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think, I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? There are
right.
millions of ballots going out right now.
What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
no,
and that's okay,
or
you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But
like
what I'm
they,
saying is,
like they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well. This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
you're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this. Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you
I
have
have a final-
80 million ballots,
Gentlemen, I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already
All
there's
right.
been
So now
fraud.
mail
deception.
service delivers
Wait a minute, gentlemen. In the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is,
day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking. In 8
a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that mean,
from a common sense,
does that mean you're
I'll tell
going to
you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted? And will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes. And here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president, not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
I have aged 30 years.
Jesus of Christ.
That was the worst thing ever.
Okay.
That was the worst debate I've ever seen. That was worse in 2016.
Donald Trump is the biggest fucking idiot I've ever seen in my life. I don't know a better way to put that. I don't know how many times you can be pressed about the simplest layups, right? Chris Wallace is a god awful moderator. Can't control the stage at all, gets dog walked the entire time. Tosses, what the hell was that question about Biden
National
stopping
Guard.
violence in during Black Lives Matter protests? What the hell was that question? What does that have to do with Biden? First and foremost,
Like most of those questions, actually pretty much all of them were tilted right. Like there were
We're so tilted.
like, what
They
the
were
hell does
so
Joe Biden, someone
tilted.
who doesn't hold a public office, have to do with? And by the way, even implying sending the National Guard into Portland where people are protesting is exactly
What it is that was bait because they're dying to have the leftists not vote for Biden. That's what I'm trying to tell people. Like, if you didn't get that from Trump, that that's an active campaign strategy, that they're trying to get leftists not
like
to
if we
vote for
took
Biden, that was your confirmation. Because
Oh no, I was about to say if we took a shot every time
Sorry,
we say
I'm
you
yelling.
just lost the
If-
radical left, like we'd be all sloppy drunk right now.
I wouldn't be able to hold my child right now.
Okay, so this is what Trump was. He did not listen to whenever his team member told him what to talk about. And he was like that North Carolina Miss America who she talked about all the topics at once. Because that's what he did. Like within the first 5 minutes, when he was supposed to only have 2 minutes, he kept shooting out all the things he was supposed to talk about. And it was obvious that dividing leftists from Biden was one of the points. And I need for people to understand how dangerous that is.
I want to highlight Nick's point here because Courtney, you were talking about. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Nick said that basically Trump committed crimes tonight, which is very true. He encouraged voter intimidation at the very end. He pushed for voter fraud. I mean, everything under the sun that he could do wrong. I want to pull back some of these notes that I had that just show from the beginning, because I think in the beginning of the debate when Biden was actually on track, and I will say anytime Biden got off track, he did a good job of kind of careening himself back on, because what you're dealing with here is not a person who has debate prepped or anything of that nature. You're dealing with somebody who does not live in reality, does not operate in reality, and he's going to throw whatever the hell he can at you to either enrage his base or to get people who are maybe on the fence to not come out. Like we're saying, Courtney, he's trying to get, he said it several times that he's trying to say things to get the radical left to stay home for Joe instead of voting for Joe Biden. Here's the issue. He pointed this out in the beginning, and I hope this is all over the place. When asked about the Affordable Care Act, Wallace said, "You never came up with an idea, and why should they trust you?" And what Trump basically said was, "You should just trust me. I got rid of the worst part of the Affordable Care Act," which is the only part of the Affordable Care Act that would protect people. He sat up here and said that, and Biden went ahead and said, and I'm glad he pointed it out, November the 9th, almost 1 week after the election, your administration is going to be in the Supreme Court arguing to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. That's one of the reasons why you want Amy ACB, whatever her last name is, on the court. That's the only reason you want her on there. That's the only reason you're trying to push her through. So when you see these little things, and I scroll Twitter while we're watching it and while we're listening to this utter disaster, and I'm seeing, of course, people react to things without actually considering what they're saying. But seeing people say stuff like, Biden's not all there, or he's lost it, or he just, it's one of those things where I'm just like, are we watching the same thing? Are we watching one man try and attempt to put forth policy while the other one delves and dives in conspiracy and brings up Hunter Biden for 2 hours and just...
And his dead son, Bo.
Ron, you haven't jumped in here yet. Go ahead.
This is like the worst case scenario of what I was expecting from these debates, because it's back to the sandbox where you're trying to have a legitimate argument and the kid is in your face and I know you are, but what am I? That's basically what it is. And it's hard to even get points in when, as Courtney said, like every response that Trump would have, he would basically get all his points in. He'd be like it'd be a question about the economy. Oh, but that's the suburbs are bad and the radical left and like nothing to do. Like, it's how do you even debate with that? How?
Here's the problem. Not to cut you off. Sorry, Ryan.
No, you're good. No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. His team is, I'm not going to call him smart. His team has been so smart to sow the seed of, fake media, whatever, we can't trust them. The media does not want to be seen as biased against him because he has sown that seed. Here's the thing. They are too cowardly to cut the fucking mic. You need to cut. Here's the thing. I was debate team. The mic would be cut. I'm sorry I'm yelling into the mic because you saw me swig my wine. But here's the thing. The mic would have been cut. They need to cut the mic at that point. And I'm glad that Biden finally got the courage to say, can I get my time back? Brought out that Maxine Waters. It's like, get your time back. Ask that you get your time back because that has been the goal. His goal was to derail from the points the whole time. The goal was to intimidate you. Here's one of the main things of debate that I learned that works so well, especially with men like Donald Trump. You keep talking when they interrupt you and act like you were never interrupted. And he was not doing that at first, but he's finally started doing that. You have to ignore because he's gonna try to bully you. You cannot let yourself be bullied. I think he finally realized, like midway through the debate, that's what was happening because he finally wisened up. I think the goal was to get him to not talk as much as possible so they can keep up the whole thing that he's senile.
Did you mute yourself on accident?
Huh?
Did your mic go unplugged?
My mic did it. Uh-oh.
No, I hear it just fine.
Okay.
But because it's ironic because a lot of projections there because Donald Trump is the one that's old as fuck and is senile. But and the thing is, I want to urge people, even from the leftist sphere that I'm in, you have to be careful because some of you are buying into the same white supremacist tropes and fascist tropes that they're pushing. You're buying into it. The memes are funny, but they're working as propaganda. You think you're impervious to it because you're smart. But no, you're not. If you're like, I expected Joe Biden to be senile, he has never shown it. And here's the thing. Yes, he's not the best speaker, but just because someone has a speech impediment does not mean they're senile. I think a lot of people need to check themselves. Where did that bias come from? Where I think someone isn't capable because they have a speech impediment, or I think they're senile. Yeah, a little bit of ageism came out of me tonight, but still.
I want to punch on that a little bit because I think that's what kept bothering me. And Jonathan brought up another point that I wanted to talk about was how Wallace kept kind of taking Trump's bait. And I was, as much as I'm ragging on Wallace tonight, I do applaud him for the few times that he stood up and said, no, basically shut the fuck up. But there comes a point where if you're Joe Biden and he did this kind of part of the way through, you just kind of ignore and keep it moving, right? The only thing that he really stuck Biden on where Biden wouldn't get off of it was the Hunter Biden stuff, which is understandable. That's his child and he's spewing lies about his child. So he's going to stand up for him. But it really frustrates me that Trump can get away with not telling white nationalists to stand down. He said, stand down and stand by. Stand by. And then said, go to the polls. Later on said, go to the polls and watch the polls. If that is not a direct indicator of what this man stands for and what he's trying to do, then I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I don't know how else to tell you that this man is insanely dangerous. He does not care about you. He does not care about people like you. He only cares about himself. And he will do whatever it takes to maintain power. And if you're one of the dumbass white nationalists that think that he's for you just because you're both white, I got something to tell you. The tax cuts that he did were for people like him, not you. So when we sit up here and we have these stupid ass conversations about Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all of these kind of things, and you try and circle back around to not blaming the Proud Boys and not blaming whatever your little white posses are, you do yourself a disservice. You do everybody a disservice because you do not live in reality. You live in absolute fiction. So what needs to happen now? All these news organizations, all these CNN, and I'm seeing what people are saying that CNN is talking about now, how it was a shit show and how they're coming down on Trump and everything like that, which is the way it should be. But what we should be talking about is how the president of the United States got up on stage, did not denounce white nationalism, tried to push it back on Black Lives Matter and a movement that denounces fascism. He tried to put it back on a movement against fascism. If that doesn't tell you what we're dealing with, then I don't know what does.
One thing
circles, but I'm annoyed.
One thing I will say, I'm glad that Biden finally said that exactly what Dee said, but he finally said it's not an organization, it's an idea. But I do wish that he said, what does anti-fascism stand or Antifa stand for? I wish he would have just said that, because that would have been my retort. What does Antifa stand for?
Yeah, because I recently downloaded my Antifa application, but I Googled online where to send it. Like, I was looking for an address. I couldn't find one. I couldn't find a board. I couldn't find a president. Couldn't find a treasurer. So where do I find Antifa? I'm joking, by the way. But no, seriously. I'm glad he said that. Antifa is simply an idea. So if you say this is Antifa, you could put anything under the umbrella of Antifa. And it's insane that something that concatenates anti-fascism is bad in America, whereas Trump can call out Proud Boys by name and say stand down and stand by, then later say, just hang out at the polls just in case. Like, I wonder who they're gonna target if they go to the polls.
Here's the problem, and I saw this on the timeline, is that this is why you don't need a white male. sorry, Jonathan, it's for Americans only. It's part of the whole, as you know, as one of the chapter leaders of Antifa, that's gonna get me got for saying that. But here's the thing: is that this is why we don't need privileged white male moderators. We don't like this. Should not have been 3 white men discussing Black Lives Matter. That's the problem. And I understand that what they used to do is have the American people come up with the debates and ask questions, but they still should have had. I don't know. I still think they should have had a Black voice help ask that question. Like what? Like why you're having 3 privileged white men discuss this, and that's part of the problem.
Because the way the question was framed, and by the way, this Black Lives Matter is nothing new. Like, presidential candidates, like, oh, how do you feel about power to the people? Oh, how do you feel about Black power? It's always framed as like, how do you feel about this radical Black force in America? Like, and that's not what it's about.
How do you feel about the coloreds advocating for their own existence and well-being without being bothered or shot in the streets by police, without having to sleep in their own bed and being shot because the police kicked down their door at the wrong house for a raid that they had no business doing, a no-knock raid they had no business doing, and then eventually charged because they shot into the white apartment? How does that feel? Can you explain to me what that's like? Because I don't understand. And I'm sorry. Like, I hate to keep interrupting. I'm just really routinely pissed off at just how this shit keeps getting framed. I'm really upset and I'm really annoyed. It's asinine that, like y'all were saying, it keeps coming down to this. Like, I'm sorry.
Here's my take is that, again, like we try, like I have a lot of friends in local media I really support because of the whole fake media news, but I think people aren't coming down hard on them enough for being right, framing things towards the conservative framing. And that's part of what got us to 2016 is how the media framed Trump. And I don't think a lot of people talk about that enough, because Trump is attacking the media, but it's like a reverse psychology. He's attacking them, therefore, but they don't want to lose their press passes, which I get. Like they want to stop being attacked, but it's causing them to frame things and be so gentle with Trump that this is what we get. 4 years is how we've gotten here.
Yeah, I always make this joke on Twitter that it's going to be the year 2030 and they're going to be like, yeah, we interviewed Supreme Emperor Donald Trump today. And like, it's like, I hate access journalism. Like, and this debate highlights that this country is moderate right and conservative, because like moderate right at best, but conservative at worst, because the recurring theme of this entire debate was, don't scare the white people. Like that's what this entire debate was about. So it's like, because there was one question about like that could have been framed a different way about community policing, but the question was very much like, instead of asking like, oh, like the conversation about defunding police, can you talk a bit about what that means and what you plan to do? But it was
a gotcha question.
Yeah, it was presented as an ill, like commit to this, commit to defunding the police. So therefore, we already know what what the other side of that is, like what that means when you say you got to defund the police, even though that's not the conversation that's even being had, but that's how it was framed.
Yeah, no, and that's another part of it, right? Like that's what annoyed me. Like if we're gonna do this dog and pony show of Chris Wallace pretending to be a moderate on Fox News on national television, then this should not have been the first debate. This should have been the second debate. It should have been something where, and I can't remember who the other moderators are, where we have a different face on a less radical network. Who, and as much as Chris Wallace again tries to play the middle, he still works for Fox News. He still has a right-leaning agenda. So we have these debate questions that are aimed at making Biden prove something when he is not the incumbent. And that is the largest problem to me. Joseph Biden is not the president of the United States. Donald Trump is. All the questions about violence in the streets and all the bullshit about the protests that started out as peaceful and then erupted for various reasons. Look, if Joe Biden wants to take the white guy approach of denouncing the violence and trying to appeal to white America, then okay, whatever. I understand you got an election to win, blah, 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 whatever. I have said in the past before that I would not be one to be out there breaking windows, but I understand why people are breaking windows. And that whole conversation about the social contract being violated, that goes a long way to what's happening now. But you can't sit up here and start peaceful protests and go to violence, and you don't talk about what happened in between. Incitement from police officers, from police departments who are, we have videos. There's an account on Twitter, I can't think of the name of it, but back in August, late July, had a thread of at least 500 instances where police just attacked protesters unprovoked. They weren't doing anything but holding a damn sign or marching in the streets, and they got attacked. So we have evidence that these police officers, that these departments are doing these things to protesters. Now, because we know that, we should be able to acknowledge that, but we can't acknowledge that because we're on Fox News, and that would be giving into the idea that President Trump is wrong. There is not a single question out there tonight, with the exception of the way Chris Wallace leaned into a few of them at the end because he was just fed up, that weren't directed to give Trump the advantage, and he still screwed them up. He still messed it up.
Can I say one thing too that's really bothered me about this is that Biden's team needs to prep him on how not to take bait on to isolate his leftist Democrats. He fell into, I could tell he saw it for what it was, but he fell into it because again, Trump is a bully. But that's one of my problems is that they keep asking Biden to distance himself from leftists who show that are not the same level as the KKK white supremacists. But Trump got one question where he was asked to distance himself from radical white supremacists, because that's what I'm gonna call them. I'm not gonna call them radical right because they're white supremacists. I'm not gonna.
And I do want to say along those lines, I'm glad Biden called it out. I'm glad he made the line. It was kind of overshadowed by Trump just yelling like a child, but he made the line about, he said his own FBI director noted that white supremacist groups are the largest terrorist organization within the United States, not Black Lives Matter. He directly said that, and I'm glad he did. I wish it was picked up more.
Yeah, me too, because I think a lot of people, the timeline missed that too. But the biggest problem is and people aren't noticing this. I don't know why people aren't noticing this. It's driving me nuts. People aren't noticing that it's bait. First of all, again, you have to take yourself outside of the situation and notice that it's bait. This Chris Wallace he's not moderate. He's not in the middle at all. You have to understand there's agenda behind these questions. But Trump got one question asking himself to distance himself from white supremacists, and he wouldn't. And that was left alone, which was wild. But
he couldn't do it.
Biden kept being asked to distance himself from leftist policy repeatedly. And it wasn't just by Trump, it was by Chris Wallace repeatedly.
You raised a good point. Why must Biden separate himself from the so-called radical left, but Trump isn't pressed to separate himself from, the far right? Because let's break down. And by the way, Trump himself identified with the far left once. He kept referring to the Green New Deal. He kept referring to ACA and the individual mandate. Whereas we hear about Kenosha, we hear about Charlottesville. And this isn't me trying to like say apples or oranges, but I mean, come on, apples or oranges. Like it's like so why is the onus on Biden to separate himself from this far left radical thing that he's never been, but Trump
Exactly.
and that's rhetorical, by the way, because we all know the answer.
Yeah, and the thing is, and that's why I want, like, as a leftist myself, I want people to recognize it for what it is, and they're trying to get you to not vote.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the goal. Like that is the goal. Like, yes, I found some of his answers disappointing, but again, we have someone that wouldn't even condemn white supremacists. What side are you on? And no, there is no neutral party here.
No,
there is no intellectualism. There is no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no being so above it all. There is no holier than thou. If I withhold my vote, that will show the Democratic Party. Look at two of the people on this podcast. I just want you to look at two of the people on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about, if you're a white leftist thinking about not voting, and I want you to remember the words that were said to people like the Proud Boys and all these other far white wimp groups or whatever. Stand down and stand by. We cannot afford for him to win. We cannot afford for him to convince you into staying home. Okay. And I know a lot of people out there. I know a lot of black folks out there will look at it and say, well, whatever, I can fend for myself. But at the same point in time, bro, we outnumbered. There's not, I don't care how many guns you got. We're outnumbered.
Another thing to that.
So
let me interject real quick. I'm sorry. The onus is always placed on the Democrats. Like, oh, what are you going to do? Like basically the onus is on, like, people hold the like there's more accountability pointed towards the Democratic Party than there's the Republican, because with all this chatter about like the Democrats earning the black vote, like we never asked Republicans what are they gonna do to ensure that my rights are protected. Like, because it's like the bad kid in the classroom problem. Like the bad kid just acts up, but once the good kid acts out of line, it's like, oh, we're gonna send the good kid to the principal's office now, and the bad kid is still acting up. So they know that the Republican Party has been the bad kid the entire time, their entire lives, but they point their energy to the Democratic Party. And yeah, we can't have those conversations. There's a place to have those conversations, but at the same time, like, just stop with this pseudo intellectualism, this, like, because it's so stupid. Like, if you don't see what's at stake right now, then I honestly don't know what to tell you.
Again,
I just wanted to point this out because this is quick work by the Biden team. There are now shirts up on Biden's website. Will you shut up, man? T-shirt with Donald Trump's face imposed in the background.
I like that they're playing a similar game to how Trump's team played in 2016. Yep. I like that. And here's,
you can't play nice.
They gave him less memeable moments, which I appreciated, and I don't think was appreciated much on the timeline, is that he was careful not to give him memeable moments, like with, if you know what I mean, like with Hillary Clinton, like he wasn't given that opportunity. Mm-hmm. But back to the whole left, right, leftist thing, I'm going to make this repeat all over again. If you are Caucasian and you are leftist, you have to keep this in perspective, and you still need to listen to Black voices. You always need to listen to Black voices, especially when they're throwing concern. Like, there is no moral high road right here, because there's going to be people that are going to be affected worse by this than you. I think there's this misconception that, like, oh, we're all, it's like, yes, in some way, like, racism predates all of this. Like, it predates capitalism, despite what a lot of people think it does. Like, historically, it does. Slavery predated all of that, and all of that was built on that. And yes, like capitalism was built on that later. It's a very complex history, but still, like, you may not be affected by it, but Black people are going to be affected by it 10, 100,000 times worse than you are. And that's why you need to listen to voices. And ignoring people talking about how important this is, you're telling Black voices they don't matter. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be the one to say it. You're telling them they don't matter, and that you know them more than they do. I'm begging people to take a step back and listen to Black and brown voices on this. Because, like, I can be affected. Yes, I can lose my reproductive rights, but I'm still privileged, and I'm still protected by my whiteness, no matter what. As much as, like, I try to put my, like, you know, my womanhood before my whiteness will always come before my womanhood. Always. If you're an ally, your whiteness will always come first, no matter how hard you try. You will be protected by that whiteness. Of course, if you speak out, it gets to, like, you're in danger, but you'll never be as in danger as someone that's Black. I need people to understand that, because I don't think it's clicking. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot at risk right now for people to look like me, but for people that are Black and brown, it's 100 times worse. It's terrifying. You think it's scary? It's terrifying. And I hate and I feel like for some people, they're listening to me more on this than you or Ryan. Maybe or people that look like you, and that's part of the problem. And I think people need to take a step back and look at their privilege and listen to Black and brown voices on this, because they're not. Sorry, that's my tangent.
Yeah. Let me get this in real quick.
Yeah,
I promise I'm gonna be quick. So as I say all the time, I am from Ringo County, Alabama. I grew up in Hale County, Alabama. I know a lot of proud Black people down there that, through generations and generations, they've been given land. They're okay with what they have. But every now and then they have, the white liberals show up and it's like, oh, you're living in squalor. Let me show you how to improve your life. Let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to do that. Like, for generations and generations, this has been happening. Instead of asking these people what they need, you assume you know what they need. And this happened. And by the way, like I said, full disclosure, I voted for Elizabeth Warren. I consider myself a leftist, although not far left as most people, but I consider myself a leftist. Joe Biden was like nearly my last choice. But anyway, I say that to say this. There are people who called Black Southern voters uneducated simply because all right. So if I am, all right. So let's
run it back. Go back to South Carolina. Run it back.
Not even South Carolina. If I am living in Uniontown, Alabama, where waste and sewage is shipped, and I have sewage in my front yard, then the ideals of a new Green Deal are going to hit my ears, because I step out of my house and I'm stepping in shit. So those ideals aren't even going to reach me, because this hasn't been fixed yet. So they're going to vote for the people that they know, the people that, have, been in their corner for all this time. So those ideals aren't reaching them yet. So the onus is on you as the far left to figure out how to reach these people, because they want to hear that. But instead of assuming what they need, there needs to be a better line of communication. And I hate this elitism that comes from either other regions or other cultures. What these people need. Open up the conversation, let these people talk, and you listen. It's simple as that.
I would like to, because Ron and I make the joke all the time. We made the joke even before Courtney joined us, that on the list of 85 presidential candidates during the primary, the only people that I had below Biden were John Delaney, Marianne Williamson, Joe Sestak.
Who's Joe Sestak?
Yeah, exactly. Tim Ryan, Bill, my black son, de Blasio, and John Hickenlooper. Those
not
are all
even Buttigieg. Wow.
Not even Buttigieg. I had Buttigieg above Biden. I was willing to go that far down before I got to Biden. But let me point something out, because Ron made a good point about Uniontown, Alabama, and people who called Black Southern Democrats or Black Democrats poor or low information voters. I want to point something out that I pointed out time and time again to everybody who cried about the DNC being rigged. Anytime people cry about, oh, this is the best we can do, let me run something back. The first 3 states in the Democratic primary that held any kind of vote, what were they? Do we all remember? Iowa
for some reason.
New Hampshire, and Nevada, which all do credit to Nevada. Nevada is a more diverse state than the other 2, particularly when it comes to Hispanic population. But there's something that's in common with those 3 states that they don't have in common with South Carolina when it comes to the Democratic Party.
What could that be, Ryan?
I don't know. Maybe it's the color shirt we're wearing. South Carolina, one of the issues with Warren, and I've said time and time again, this is an Elizabeth Warren Stan account. I wish she was the nominee. I wish I would have seen her on stage debating that man, because I think she would have torn him to shreds.
Oh, she would have. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, where Elizabeth Warren failed and where Bernie Sanders failed is they did not get enough of the black voting bloc. I think that Elizabeth Warren did a good job of trying to showcase why her policies helped black communities. It was a little bit too little too late when she finally figured out how to get that messaging done, but that's where she failed. That's where Bernie failed. So when South Carolina comes along and Bernie is in the lead before South Carolina, but all of a sudden after South Carolina, what we have a bunch of southern states. We got Georgia, we got Tennessee, we've got Alabama, we've got all these states with what do they have in common? Very strong black populations. So what happens is Biden looks dead in the water, and all of a sudden, here's South Carolina. Here come the black people. They vote, and again, we're not a monolith. I'm not saying we're a monolith, but he appealed to a large part of that party for a reason. They knew and trusted him. They didn't know Bernie. They didn't know Elizabeth. And you can say what you want about it, but that's why he ended up winning those delegates. So step back for a second in terms of our anger. And yes, in a perfect world, we've got ranked choice voting and maybe Bernie or Elizabeth end up the nominee. But that ain't what it is. What we have right now is Joe Biden, who's running on a very progressive platform. If you haven't seen it, I've done a video about it. If you don't feel like watching a 20-minute video, I just tweeted out an image that has a full list of his policies. If you want to read them, you can follow me and I'll send you the image, or ask me about it and I'll send you the image. It has everything that a lot of people have been calling for. Is it Medicare for all? No, it's not. It's a step in the right direction, and we cannot let perfection be the enemy of progress. We have a man right now. I'm going to read this stuff off just because I'm sick and fucking tired of this. I'm really just annoyed by all this shit. We have a person right now who one of the first things he wants to do is raise the minimum wage. He wants to double it. He wants to end family separations at the border. He wants to pass a new Voting Rights Act and challenge Shelby versus Holder, which, if you are not aware, is the reason why a lot of states starting in 2014 started voter ID laws again. Going further, he wants free pre-K for everybody. I got 3 kids under 5 years old. I'd be very happy to not pay shit for daycare. Continuing, we have 12 weeks of paid leave for new parents, something that we should have had with the Hillary Clinton presidency. He also wants to end the death penalty, pass a rent right. He wants to ban conversion therapy. He wants to reverse anti-trans homeless shelter policy. He would like to protect 30% of land and water by 2030, net zero emissions by 2030. He would also like to end cash bail, end mandatory minimum sentences, end incarceration for non-payment of fees and fines, which is a criminalization of poverty. He wants to end, what's the one I'm looking for? He wants to end dark money in elections. He would like to, where's the other one? With cash bail, minimum sentences, incarceration, decriminalize marijuana, expunge all charges for possession of marijuana. What the fuck else do you need? I understand that we want more, but you can't get there unless we do this first. We're not going to jump from a Trump presidency to a Bernie Sanders presidency. That wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. So if we can get to a Biden presidency, and then if it becomes Kamala or somebody else, then we can make this transition, okay? A great day for this nation would be when the right-leaning party is the Democratic Party. And then we have another party where there's the Green Party or some kind of progressive. We bring back the Bull Moose. We bring Teddy Roosevelt back from the dead, whatever the fuck we got to do. But at the end of the day, this is, it just drives me crazy because the information is there. We have a candidate who wants to do the very things that a lot of people, progressives, are pushing for. But because it's not as far as Bernie wants to go, there's a problem. And
because it's not like Viva la Revolucion. It's not.
Look, and I just want to ask these revolution people who ain't gonna do shit to pop off a revolution.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing with that. If all of these people, why haven't you started it yet? Where are you in those protests? Why haven't you started it yet? Why are you wait? What they're waiting on is minorities to start it. Is what they're doing. I'm just going to say it. Like, I'm
tired of carrying the weight. I'm gonna be honest.
That's what I'm saying. They're expecting everyone else to start it. Then where are you? Why don't you start it?
And I want to say that there are.
I do, but here's the thing. You have to be pragmatic. You got to be pragmatic. You got to understand. Like I said, I was a Bernie supporter, but the thing is, he didn't. Because he's still old as fuck, and he's from way up in New England, and you don't know how to deal with minorities. He didn't listen to his black staff. I've heard stories from staff that work from him, and that was one of his greatest fallacies. Elizabeth Warren had a similar issue. She was working on it. But here's another thing: I don't think she the damage that she caused with the indigenous population. know if that could have ever been repaired because people didn't. And you're saying people didn't treat that seriously because they don't treat Indigenous people seriously. Well, that's a whole different conversation. But I'm very tired of like Viva la Revolution. I'm with you. I get that, but here's the thing: you're waiting on other people to do it because you don't want to. And quite frankly, it's probably you're picturing minorities doing it, and you're again political accelerationism, which is extremely.
Well, and I want to piggyback off that because every time you say it, it makes me think of something. And it's where I get weary with a lot of people when they want to talk about, oh, we need to completely do X, Y, Z. Look, again, in my ideal version of this country, we don't have housing crises, right? We have publicly subsidized housing for homeless populations. We have a Medicare for all system where everybody has access to healthcare. And after you have a baby and they have to run tests, you're not getting hit 2 months later with a $400 bill out of nowhere, right? So I'm very much in support of these things, and we have to get there. And I guess the way I see it is I see a path to get there, right? I see a way that we can get these things. And we've said time and time again, and Trump has said it, and a lot of these right-wing groups have said it, and they're absolutely right when they say this, that Biden is pushing a very far left agenda. It's not as far left as some people want to go, but it's further left than this country is used to, and he's wrapping it up in a very centrist and independent way. When you put forth jobs, that's conservative ideology. When you put forth that we're going to get people back to work, we're going to get the economy up and running, that's packaged in conservatism, and it's working. So keep doing it. And then when we get all of this stuff in here, when we have a public auction and people see how well a publicly funded healthcare system can be, and when the next person comes along and says, well, why don't we take the next logical step? It can be done. And when we say we're going to end these kinds of incarcerations and we're going to put these different programs in place, we're going to get rid of private prisons, we're going to get rid of the tax breaks that pharmaceutical companies get just to advertise their products on television. When we do these little things and we dismantle the little parts, then we can get the big things done. Ask people like Elizabeth Epps, who's out there in Colorado in the Denver metro area working, okay? Elizabeth Epps is somebody who is a police abolitionist, all right? She is somebody who believes in the abolishment of policing. I don't know quite how I feel about that because I haven't researched it enough in terms of replacement concepts, things like that. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know enough about it yet, but she's out there working. She's not just protesting, she's getting involved in legislature. And that's not to say protesting isn't important because it's very important, but she understands the way that both of those things work together. She's about that action, and she's not afraid to get out there and get to work. And she's not afraid to get in people's ears to get things done because of the different small reforms that Denver and Aurora, or particularly Denver, has done are because of the initiatives that she's led. So when we talk about a revolution, when we talk about work, that's the work we got to put in. I'm not talking about sitting up here and saying, well, like, we'll just tweet through it. I'm not talking about us just doing a podcast. Okay. I'm talking about actual work. I'm talking about meeting with people, talking with people. And that one of the great things that I've appreciated of what we've been able to do with this is to build that foundation and get those connections. Because guess what we're able to do now? We're able to get these contacts and getting these people's ear about these things getting done. I've had wonderful conversations with Greg Kennard and Shelly Hutchinson and Rebecca Mitchell and all these different people running for in Georgia. But there's one thing that you can bet I'm going to do and other people are going to do that live here is we're going to hold them accountable because that's what we're supposed to do.
And here's one thing that bothers me. Again, like, I'm a social worker. I'm going to get into the depths of what I do. People are like, oh, like, I get it. Like, I have absolutely universal health care. Have been a proponent of that for a very long time. But the same people that are like, oh, healthcare, that you're sitting on your ass, you're only tweeting about it. Why are you not emailing your local rep about why they didn't expand Medicaid? Because I bet a lot of people, like, you hear expanding Medicaid, but you don't know what that means. What that means is in the state of Georgia, unless you have a child or you're disabled, you are not eligible for health insurance. Unless you're a woman, then you can get your OBGYN appointment once a year. And this is a pandemic. Like, and that's what Joe Biden had mentioned. Like, I'm not going to go over it, but Google, look up what the income limits for Medicaid are in your state and be disgusted. We have to tackle those things first. As someone that deals with the lowest level of public policy, that's my job. As I deal with the lowest level of public policy, it can't be a huge leap. It's going to have to be steps. And like, in an ideal world, I would love for us to jump to that, but we have to tackle the millions of people that live in states that you look down on as uneducated because you live in a state where you have expanded Medicaid, so you're privileged. You don't understand how bad it is. You live in an urban area where you have greater access to healthcare, and you're not like one of my clients that has to drive 40 miles to get to Emory to like every single week to get their treatments. You don't understand that. So again, it comes back to listening to people. If at the very least in activism, if you could at least email and annoy, it doesn't matter if they don't respond to you, just keep bothering them. Why didn't you expand Medicaid? Why didn't you expand Medicaid? What? Even if they're Republican, email them. They work for you. That's the
way around.
you can do. Sorry, I'm trying not to go on a tangent, but that's one of the things that like gets me really riled up.
No, you're fine. I didn't know if y'all wanted to
don't
see
care about those on Medicaid.
I don't know if y'all wanted to see what Kamala was talking about, or if y'all wanted.
Oh yeah. By the way, that debate I think is going to be a lot better.
Off the table. Is that an idea that you're willing to think about?
We are 35 days away from an election that is probably the most important election of our lifetime and our children's lifetime. And there is nothing about these next 35 days that Joe or I will take for granted. And so the focus right now is on reminding people that we have this election that is very much in play. It is about reminding people that people are voting right now. Almost 1 million people, Jake, in our country have already voted. We are in the midst of an election, and the Republican leader of the Senate, together with Donald Trump, are in the spirit of hypocrisy, trying to push through a nominee while the American people are voting. And so Joe has been really clear. Let's focus on what's happening right now. Deal with later. Focus on what's happening right now, which is the American people are voting, and they should be the ones to decide who will have the next lifetime appointment to the United States Supreme Court. Let's not get distracted. Let's be focused on what is right in front of us, because there is a lot at stake in terms of the integrity of our democracy, of our election system, and this process that should take place over the next 35 days.
I will respectfully note that you also declined to answer that question with me, Senator Kamala Harris. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you, Jake. Thanks for the question.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna hate seeing it, but anyway.
Now, what I do want to make sure is that we're on standby, because Daniel Dale is supposed to come by with the fact checks. So I do want to make sure we hear that before we go.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Courtney. Sorry.
I was just saying she's good. She's good. I think here's the thing. I think people like Pence is just as stupid and fucked up, but he has a calm demeanor. But I said, Kamala wasn't my favorite either. But I think again, towards the same people that we're talking about, you have to be very careful about discrediting a black and Asian woman. And I think this was a topic on the timeline. Again, like, you can be an ally and you can be a progressive, but if you as a white woman or just white person start questioning someone's blackness, like what I saw people doing with Candace Owens, it's not your place.
Thank you, because
it's not. Here's the thing: is like I could be an ally, but it will never be my place to question someone's blackness.
Because I was seeing like far too many Kamala as a cop memes flying from fair skinned people, and I'm like, this isn't your battle to fight.
And if you didn't come, like, you're not like black or brown, you never had to deal with like police discrimination, like, shut up. Like, it's fun. This is where people fall into the memes too much. Mm-hmm. Like, you think you're impervious to propaganda because you're leftist, but you're not. I don't know how many times I have to say it. And the fact that you're probably listening to me more on it because I have pale skin, that's a problem that you need to look into. I'm sorry. I'm gonna like.
No, like, I think I'm at the point now where I don't look. I think a great point was made prior to this debate that Trump doesn't really have a floor. He has a ceiling, right? In terms of support, there's all that Biden can do and all that Democrats can do is limit that ceiling. I don't think he moved that ceiling at all tonight. And that's me not trying to be biased. That's not me trying to be. I don't think he moved that ceiling. I don't think he gained more support. I think
he intensified his base, but I don't think he moved the needle.
There's a possibility he didn't lose support.
Right.
But I don't think he gained any. I think you probably still have a lot of independents that are kind of, wringing their hands, trying to figure out which way they're going to go. Soft Republicans, things like that, who don't really want to admit which way they're leaning. But at the end of the day, I think it's fairly obvious that these debates are not going to move that ceiling in the upward direction. The only thing they can do is take Biden down. And I don't think he went down tonight.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm no authority on this, clearly, because I'm not a white man. But think about the office, the presidency, and what you're used to seeing. You didn't see that tonight. What you saw the sitting president pretty much react as if he was a petulant child. Like, that's not how he was being asked questions. Like, they weren't even tough questions. They were like layups, and he could not give a straight answer. So if you truly honor the office of the presidency, then and if you voted for him the first time, then now is the time to admit, like, okay, I made a mistake. Now is the time to do a course correction. You don't have to make that same mistake again. So yeah, if you truly feel like I said, there's like a level of respect and legitimacy to the office of the presidency, then you're not getting it from this guy. So make the right decision this time around.
I do want to actually point something out too, because I think it just shows how far out of touch the right is. Kellyanne Conway trying to follow the same strategy that Trump was going with the election. Quote, "The Green New Deal is not my plan. I don't support the Green New Deal." At Joe Biden, and then tries to CC AOC and Ed Markey. Bro, they know. And that's the issue, right? Is they're so out of touch with what is reality for people that they don't realize that they already know this. They don't realize that people already know this. The president got on TV like a fucking dweeb and sat up there and talked about how the damn forest wasn't being cleaned properly, and that's the reason for all these fires in California. Like, they don't live in reality. They just don't. And when you see things like this, and when you see, like, even Kirk Herbstreit is like, never really followed politics typically. I've been pretty neutral about it. Watch tonight, very concerned. We won't talk about the privilege of that, but we will talk about Kirk damn Herbstreit is speaking up and saying, yo, this is a problem. This is a problem.
Yeah. And by the way, like as you mentioned before, like the Green New Deal is like Dr. Pepper, and Joe Biden's policy is like Dr. Thunder, basically. Like it's same great taste, different name. So
and I'm sorry, Ron, I want to point out something. The Green New Deal is meant to be extra. It was meant to be over the top,
so and we can bring it down
and
to
bring it down.
Level.
But the other thing is, what Republicans don't realize is they take bits and chunks, and they don't realize how ridiculous the bits and chunks sound. Getting rid of the cows. This isn't the first time they've tried to play that ploy, right? This is not the first time they try to say they're gonna get rid of cows.
Methane farts. Yeah.
Methane farts. It's like, bro, all the report says is that methane is a big contributor of global warming, and that we need to reduce the amount of meat consumption we have, because that's what that causes. Get rid of the cows. You can't fly airplanes anymore. There's no more two people vehicles. Like, bro, what? You don't live in reality. You don't live in what this is.
No one's saying that.
Like, get out of the office and go back to hell where you belong.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I keep on interrupting you. I'm just like.
No, I walked away, but no. I wrote down a couple of notes myself. But like the one important thing the very first thing I wrote was like, he talks like it's a run-on sentence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like the whole and I think that's intentional. Right? Like, I think he talks to where he tries to talk so fast that people don't get fully what he's saying. I think he only wants people to get the keyword points. Again, like the whole point is to derail and to defocus. And I feel like people on both sides, and I hate to be like the both sides person, but people are falling for it. even
used car salesman, yeah.
And I'm just like, y'all have to be smarter than this. Y'all have to be smarter than this. But yeah, I think like I was mainly concerned. I made a note, it's like Biden, again, letting him interrupt, but he did get better about it. Trump word vomiting and interrupting and bullying is part of it. Get a fucking better moderator, but that's out of Biden's control. One thing I want to talk about is Notre Dame. How is Notre Dame is a Catholic university? Of course, they're going to support like
in Indiana, no less.
In like one of the most conservative parts of Indiana.
Right.
But again, like the thing is, he's talking to Trump supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think people need to remember. Like that's who he's talking to. So
I need to pull up and see.
Support period.
I need to pull up and see who the next moderators are for the debate.
Oh, I got it. Hold on. Steve Scully and Kristen Welker.
Who's the moderator for the VP debate?
That is a good question. I don't have that in front of me.
All right. I won't worry about it too much. We'll see how they handle it.
No, it's Susan Page, USA Today. Susan Page.
Which, I mean, we already know the VP debate isn't going to be as wild because as dumb as Mike Pence is, he's not going to be as interrupty and bullyish as Trump is. But, you know, with all that being said, we're not going to hold y'all too much longer. I have to go back into the office for the first time in 6 months tomorrow. So I just want to let everybody kind of have their final thought before we get out of here. So Courtney, we'll start with you.
Like I said, I think my main thought, I'm not even going to address Trump because there's nothing to address. We've already said it and it's already implied. I think for Biden, like I said, my main concern, he needs to be careful about, the biggest thing for me is be careful about not taking debate and isolating his like leftist Democrats. We have to be so careful about that. Continue to not let him bully you. You took debate prep. Don't let him interrupt you. And I think he did well, despite what people think. But you can't help it if you don't have a good moderator. Mm-hmm. You just can't. So I'm exhausted. That's what I think.
Oh, Ron, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll close it out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Biden shouldn't attempt to provide a retort to baseless claims because to the Trump voter out there that adds legitimacy to it. Like, oh, he's responding, so it must be true. So, like Courtney said, Biden, like, and he did that a few times. He got better, like when he looked directly into the camera. He just simply needs to talk to the people and not listen to the extra noise. So because ultimately that's who he's trying to win. Like those, those voters are already galvanized. Like they're not moving anywhere. So talk to the people that need to vote for you and just ignore the noise. So I think that's it.
I do want to say first to Jonathan, Ryan, R-H-I-N-E is an inside joke. The way you've been spelling it on Twitter is correct. It's R-Y-A-N. There are no undecided voters yet. I mean, there are no undecided voters. I'm sorry if you still have not decided.
Does not exist.
Then I don't. Oh, we don't need you. Well, here's my thing. You saw on stage tonight two men, one with a vision for the country, one vision for himself. You saw one fail to denounce white supremacists, while the other one was routinely pressured to denounce the black voices within his party and his caucus. You saw one who believes that climate change is an existential threat to our country and to our planet. You have another one that believes that leaves are the problem at the base of the forest in California. You saw one candidate who wants to expand access to healthcare for everybody in the country, another one who is actively fighting in court to dismantle it. Actually, in about 6 weeks, it'll be in front of the Supreme Court. You have one individual who has a plan on how to tackle COVID-19, how to tackle the coronavirus, wants to ensure that the bill that's been sitting in the House since May will get passed and will be signed so people can get more money in their pockets as we try and get through this crisis that the other individual helped cultivate by failing to do anything about this when he had the opportunity to do so, when he had the knowledge and information to do so. There are plenty of other examples that I can go into. I won't, because I said we're going to get out of here. It's already 11:30, and I'd be here until the very next day, citing all of the reasons why Donald Trump is a fraud and a fake. If you believe, for whatever reason, that Joe Biden's plan is way too expensive, have you considered the following? the tax cuts that Trump put out, the tax cuts that Trump and the Senate and Republicans in the House at the time passed, only benefit those at the top. They actively take away from the money that the U.S. government has to work with, that the federal government has to work with to pay for the things that we need to get done. By increasing taxes on people who make over $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year, whatever the financial amount is, you are able to afford the very things that Joe Biden says that he wants to pay for. So if you are scared that a Joe Biden presidency is going to mean less money in your pocket, then I don't know what to tell you, because that's factually incorrect. What you should be fearing is that Donald Trump's America and Donald Trump's continuation of the last 4 years is going to result in people being out of jobs or severely underpaid, people being sick and dying. When that vaccine comes out, when it does legitimately come out and it's ready to get distributed, who do you think is going to get it first? And after they get it, when do you think you're going to get access to it? You out there in Uniontown, you out there in Houston, Georgia, you out there in Tifton, Georgia, you in Mississippi, when do you think you're going to get it? A virus that has to be a vaccine that has to be stored at negative 70 degrees Celsius that most clinics in rural areas don't have access to. It's going to require specialized attention, specialized distribution and logistics that we don't know how it's going to be handled yet. When do you think you're going to get it if Donald Trump is in charge? You won't. Not till 2022 or 2023, whenever. He's proven he can't handle it. He's proven he can't handle the job in front of him. And that's really all there needs to be said. I shouldn't have wasted the last 3 or 4 minutes on you, but I really just had to explain it because I want you to really sit there and marinate in it, because it's absolutely ridiculous that you haven't figured that out yet. So,
can I have one last thing? And I know we gotta go. I promise I won't make this short. One thing that bothers me: he's still at a hospital, a social worker. People that complain about, healthcare, universal healthcare is gonna be so expensive. How much do you pay for your healthcare premium? How much do you pay for it? Because I pay $200 a month, and it will be cheaper, most likely, than you're paying for your premium. Because I think people are not equated. You're already paying a premium. You're already paying a premium. They've already done the math on the taxes. It's gonna affect the wealthy way more than it will you. You're already paying a premium. Not only are you paying a premium, you're likely paying a deductible. I have government insurance, so I'm not paying a deductible, but most people are. You're paying a deductible and you're paying copays. You don't have those things with the universal health care, but you're still technically paying the premium. It's just shifted to your taxes. So I want people to marinate on that. If you're scared about that, don't buy into it. Look at how much you're paying for your premium. That's all I'm going to say.
And on that note, we will be back on Thursday at the regular time. Please stand by. We hopefully have some major announcements coming soon. I'm excited. We're all excited for what's to come. I'm hoping that everything holds strong and this goes the way that it looks like it's going to go. We're going to blow this fat ass little orange motherfucker out the water, and he won't be the president anymore. Okay. And we will be able to just move on and start to continue from there. But I do want to make the point that if we do win, the fight is not over. We keep fighting, and all those little changes you want to continue to push to the left, that's when we start making those changes. All right. So for Courtney, for Ron, I'm Ryan. Thank y'all for hanging with us the last 3 hours. It has been a blast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We will catch y'all next time. I'll decide if I'm in the mental shape to be able to do another one of these live streams again for that fucking mess. But we'll catch y'all on Thursday. We'll see you then, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or later, whatever. You'll see the announcement from us when we get started. Peace out. Have a great evening, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Peace.